Welcome everyone to Alive at Home with me, Daphne Eiking. We are streaming live over Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and we're also cross-posting this to Real School Facebook. Now, today we're going to be talking about preparing your child to thrive in this new world. But before we dive into our topic today, I want to explain a little bit more about why I'm bringing this topic over my live stream today. Now, as you all know, the pandemic has not just affected lives, but livelihoods as well. As a business owner, as a parent, the uncertainties of our economy naturally, it scares me, it scares everyone. Will we still be able to provide for the family? How long will I be able to sustain? What are the drastic changes in our lives will we have to make to survive? And I guess I'm not the only person feeling this way. Now, I was reading this policy brief by United Nations the other day. It's called Education During COVID-19 and Beyond. And the statistics are of high concern. The COVID-19 pandemic has created the largest disruption of education systems in history, affecting nearly 1.6 billion learners in more than 190 countries and all continents. Closures of schools and other learning spaces have impacted 94% of the world's student population and up to 99% in low and lower income or lower middle income countries. The COVID-19 crisis and the unparalleled education disruption is far from over. We all know that. As many as 100 countries have yet to announce a date for schools to reopen, and across the world, governments, unions, parents, children are all grappling with when and how, what are we going to do, what's the best approach for the next phase. Malaysia reopened schools nationwide. We all know that, right, guys? Either based on grade level or by prioritizing exam classes or through localized openings in regions with fewer cases of the virus, only to be closed down again a few months back due to the rise of COVID cases. Now, given the continuing virulence of the virus, it is still unclear when is the reopening date for 2021. In fact, my husband and I, we just went to visit the kindergarten that my third child is in. Too many kids, sorry. And Isidore was from nursery, and now he's, of course, been promoted to kindergarten. And apparently, I didn't know this, but nurseries and below is all under the jurisdiction of JKM, or our community kebajikan, jabatan department, and kindergarten all the way to university is all under our Ministry of Education. So that gets a little bit more confusing for us parents. So they too don't know. They're all like cross finger lah, because we had to pay upfront for our fees and everything, right? So these decisions carry enormous social and economic implications. And of course, even educators, on the children, on parents, on youth, all of us are affected by the uncertainties of what's going to happen. Is school going to take place or not? Is it still going to continue with online? What to expect? Now, my parent chat group is a buzz with these speculations. So naturally, I've got all these parents in a group WhatsApp chat, and they're all saying like, what do we do? How best can we approach this, especially to those who have been sending their kids to kindergartens and or private schools. Many of them have either lost jobs or getting huge pay cuts at work, and the question on whether they can continue paying for their kids' school education is on their minds. I mean, it is for us at least. There's pleas for rebates and discounts. It has been a continuous debate for most parents out there, and even for us, while we're waiting for the news from our school, we're now contemplating whether we should send our two girls, Isabel and Iman, to a government school. I mean, that means we pull them out from their current school right now and try and apply for a government schooling. Two, maybe we should homeschool them and hire private tutors, which is a little bit more cost friendlier. Or three, should we just wait and see? Let's just wait and see. But how long can we wait and see? Because there are also other steps after that. Apparently, if we do decide to pull them out from their school right now, and I have to apply them for government school, whether or not they will be a place for them, that takes 2 weeks, and then they have to go in straight away. So it's a lot of confusion on a lot of parents out there. There are pros and cons for all these choices above, but at the end of the day, we want what's best for the child. How are our children going to manage physically, emotionally, mentally with whatever decision that we have to make as a family? And what are the other possible solutions or options? Is there a possibility of, let's say, hybrid learning or online schooling, where later on maybe we'll, go and find an online teaching course over here, and later on when things settle down, when things are schools are reopened, and then can we bring them back to that school or the school of our choice, and will that be accepted? So all these things are making us a little bit anxious. And I'm sure a lot of parents who are watching right now are also feeling the same way. So joining me today is Dr. Goh Chi Leong, the CEO of Real Education Group Sdn Bhd, who is the perfect person to discuss this topic with. He is a consultant psychologist for Mensa Malaysia and carries a wealth of experience in the education sector. And today we will discuss these hot topics and how to prepare your child to thrive in this new world. Hello, Dr. Goh.
Hi, Daphne. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. I know we had a little, audio check, so it's good that all is good now that we're actually live. Well, I've wanted to ask you this during our little Q&A earlier on before we went on live. How are you actually? How have you been coping since the MCO, the CMCO, RMCO, back to CMCO? I pun sudah confused lah. How are you, doctor?
Oh, good, thank you. Thanks for asking. I mean, look, I think like everybody else, it's been a challenging year for all of us, our family, our organization as well. And I'm very mindful of the fact that as we get to the end of 2020 and all of us are sort of reflecting back on our sort of survival experiences, that, I mean, there are many families who also lost loved ones and like you said, many organizations where a lot of jobs were lost. So I think it's certainly been a hard year. But I think one of the sort of silver linings is that when you've got a crisis like this, and all of us are sort of forced to gain a new perspective on life. And
right.
So when I've sort of reflected back on, this year, one of the things that certainly I've been reminded of what are really important things in life, and things like family, things like health, I think this year has reminded us of, the importance of focusing on our true north and what is really important. So like many other families, I've spent a lot of time with my kids and my wife, and I guess that's been perhaps the small blessing that has come out of what is a very difficult year.
Thank you so much. And yes, there are the blessings. I think I've noticed the growth of my kids so much better because I have to be with them. We've got no choice. We just have to, be comfortable with this tight, confined space that we have to just get used to. But at the end of the day, it's how we look at it and work the best around it, right? But one of the main dilemmas mid-income parents face today is, I think this is one of the concerns that I wanted to bring up, and that's the reason why we're having this chat today, is they can't commit to private schools. We're talking about mid-income parents here. I mean, we've got so many different sectors of, we're so diversified in that sense, but let's just focus on mid-income parents because that's what a lot of my audience are facing right now. Their inability to commit to private schools because it's they've got financial constraints. And they're worried whether their children will be able to cope in government schools, because we all know that's a whole different system altogether. Yep. And itu pun kalau the child is eligible, because let's say you're not a Malaysian.
Yep.
I don't know if you're allowed to go into a government school. I don't know about that. So what's your take on this?
Look, I think so. First, it is a really challenging time, and you're right. I mean, I think different parents are at different places in terms of what they can and cannot afford,
Right.
I think, as you pointed out, it's difficult for many parents to shift back to a government school, for example, if they've been doing an international curriculum, and therefore, a change in curriculum is really challenging for the child, particularly in terms of languages and stuff like that. And so, as you pointed out, I mean, there are different options. Some of the parents have chosen to homeschool the children. Some of the parents have looked at online options. Some of the parents have looked at a combination of maybe different enrichment programs or maybe all of the above,
Right.
I mean, I think, look, in the end of the day, I think that the compass that parents should use is, look, firstly, to see that this is a temporary situation. So I think even in the most pessimistic, scenarios, people are seeing light at the end of the tunnel for COVID sometime in 2021. Most people are talking about, some sort of a break or tipping point in the middle of 2021. Many people are saying, look, by certainly the third quarter of 2021, things should be back to normal. And of course, the more optimistic are saying, look, I mean, given the government opening up the economy and saying, look, schools have to be started, even in the first quarter. So I would say, what parents should be thinking of is a sort of a short-term fix. It's not about the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's about saying, during this interim period, what can I do to ensure that my child's education is not compromised, and that my child is still learning, making progress, being engaged, having time with friends, because that social interaction is incredibly important. So it's not just about learning,
Absolutely.
but making sure my child is still connected to the rest of the world. And it's about just bridging, so that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 months, we've got a plan. So for example, like some schools like Real, when we were hit by this crisis in March, April, one of the things we did was immediately, with the support of the board, make it a policy that no parent who has been affected by this crisis, so whether they've lost jobs or their businesses have suffered or they've been retrenched or whatever has happened, that no parent would have to take their kid out of school. And so what we did was
Bless you
a
guys.
whole bunch of stuff. So whether it was monthly payments, whether it was rebates, but on top of that, we actually had a special aid scheme, so that again, the policy was no child would need to be withdrawn because of financial issues. So the parents would come in, and for each of our schools, the principals would talk to them. And this is for Real schools as well as for Sri KDU, which is also under our group. And basically then one-to-one, our leaders would talk to them and say, okay, look, tell us what you can manage. Let's bridge the gap for you. And I think this was really important, because again, I think it's a community. It's about the school saying, look, we realize some people are really hurting. I mean, not all parents in that situation, but those who are, we really want to support those parents so that they don't need to worry about their children's education while they're also worried about their own career and livelihoods. Absolutely, So I think some schools have done that, but I mean, we took that step. And I felt morally this was something that we needed to do, because I think this was also a good model for the children to say, look, a good, social enterprise means that in the end of the day, I mean, there are things that are more important than just profit.
Then bless you, because I know of other schools who found it very hard to just get not even asking for a rebate, but at least some form of installments. So bless you guys that you guys reached out and you did that before it prolonged. Like we started asking, I think a few months later, but you guys were already on board March, April. That was when MCO started to hit. Already you sort of had foresight to that problem that you would see for parents, and that's great. But yeah, you're right, Doctor. At the end of the day, right? I mean, as challenging as it is, I'm maybe there's some optimism I see about you, and I think I'm like that also in the sense where I like to look at the silver lining to every cloud. And earlier I mentioned about how the pandemic has hit the education system, but at the same time, educators like your school, for instance, it has stimulated innovation within the education sector, and there is, for me at least, a profound sense of respect for teachers, because let me tell you, I thought I was the most patient mother in the world until I had to do work from home, trying to complete my confinement because I just gave birth, find solutions, online solutions for my kids, all 3 of them, and be a home teacher. So that really put a toll on me physically and mentally. It was just crazy. I'm sure other parents also felt, especially parents who, it sounds really horrible, but this is the truth, where they need to step out and be themselves by being in their career. So it's not that they don't love their kids as much. It's just that this is now adult time for me. I'm going to work on myself. So now they're just stuck at home, working from home, dealing with kids. That must drive them a little bit,
I mean, look, you cannot believe how many literally hundreds of emails I've got from parents since the March lockdown, and many of them, 99% of them saying, please thank your teachers, because for the first time you're actually seeing, how difficult it is, challenging it is to, take my son through or daughter through a class or homework, and of course many times it's easy to judge from afar because we are not in school. We have no idea, what happens in the classroom. But I think for the first time, parents actually were able to see, what the teachers were doing and how innovative, creative, how energetic they had to be, super energetic to keep all these kids engaged, and so I think you're right, absolutely respect to teachers. And this sort of links back to my earlier point that I think most of us as leaders in the education sector have had really to balance the responsibility of saying, look, some parents really are hurting financially. How do we help these parents out so that, money should never get in the way of them getting a good education for their children. On the other hand, I've got 1,000 teachers in our organization, and they need livelihoods, and it's just about making sure that they are looked after as well. And I think it's been a challenging time either way. But I should mention one more thing, Daphne, that I think, look, there are options, so the good news in Malaysian education today for parents is that, look, there are hundreds of private and international schools now, and many of them now I think are really affordable. So just to take Real as an example, for 800 ringgit onwards a month, you could already enroll your child in one of our schools. And I think the founders 35 years ago, when they started Real Education, we were one of the first private schools to be set up in Malaysia. The mission and vision was always to make good quality education affordable. And I always tell parents, look, in the end of the day, we need to be able to do the math, and even a parent who may, let's say, send a child, to a public school where there's almost no tuition fees. But when you add up all of the other stuff that we end up spending money on, so the tuition, 2, 3, 4, 500 ringgit, and then the swimming classes, and then the English and the drama classes, and the music classes, and all of the other enrichment stuff, very quickly, it adds up to a lot more than 800 to 1,000 ringgit a month.
Actually, you're right, yeah.
You always say, so that's why I think the value proposition for private education is to say, look, actually, in a school like Real, we've got everything in there. You drop your kid there, all of this stuff, the robotics, the swimming lessons, the sports, the running, the design technology, certainly drama, music is compulsory all the way up to year 9 in our schools, and all of that stuff. And the bonus on top of that is not just is it cheaper when you add up everything, but also no traffic jams, because you're not having to ferry.
Oh, yes.
50 different lessons and get parking. And I think there was a survey done recently in the Klang Valley that said something like, not including sending your kids to school, like just from the school to home, and home to tuition, and home to music classes, and all of this stuff every day of the week, it came up to some ridiculous number, like 6 to 7 hours a week on average. So I think what we are telling parents as a value proposition is that when it's true, in private schools there is a tuition fees, but when it's a one-stop stencil where that's it, and you're saving your kids 6-7 hours of being on the road. So you fetch, you drop them there, and then you pick them up at 3-4 p.m. But then by the time you take them back, then that's it.
That's it. No more.
A little bit of homework, no more scurrying around, like crazy people, which I think all of us have experienced during in the past.
That's so true. That is so true. I never thought of it that way, actually. The added value of time spent ferrying our kids to and fro. And you're right about it adds up at the end of the day. All these enrichment classes that you want, or your child wants, and you want to be supportive of. Yep. Never thought about that. That's good. That's good.
And so, a good private, I think, international school has all of that. We are saying, look, you don't need tuition because the teachers are excellent. You don't need any of this other stuff. But coming back to your point earlier about this online learning, that's to me the headline story for this year, which is, we were a bit fortunate because we actually were already priming all of our Real schools to be what we call Apple schools. So we got iPads in the hands of every single teacher, every single student, about 4 months before the lockdown. And again, I want to be able to say that it was some visionary thought, but we were...
But it had nothing to do with, because we knew that the COVID-19 was already in China, but it had nothing to do with that. It was just something that you wanted to move forward with.
Yes, we made the decision in June last year that, look, we wanted to integrate technology. We had seen all of this research in psychology that technology really helps drive, some parts of learning, the creative process, engage learners. So we did all of that. And then, of course, 4 months later, when we had rolled out the system, the lockdown happened. And I think so we were really blessed and fortunate, because it meant that when we went into lockdown in March, very quickly, our teachers already had the infrastructure, the hardware and the software. They were using iPads. So all of these, the Zoom sessions, the online learning, all of that were a lot easier. And again, I just want to give credit to my principals and teachers, because they were heroes. I just to quote some of this stuff, because every week I'm sort of getting stories, right? Because so from parents and teachers, we're hearing all of this stuff. So for example, we had, teachers, actually set up all kinds of, even PE, for example, they found a way actually to do remote learning. So they had challenges for the kids. They videotape the kids, using their iPads, could videotape themselves doing, okay, I'm going to do 5 push-ups, I'm going to run around the house. So all of this evidence was collected, of them doing exercises, doing stuff, designing things. We actually set up about 3 months ago, a virtual, co-curricular activity portal. And since then, we've got about 3,000 students now join co-curricular activity. So whether it's debate, speech, robotics, origami, among many options, because we know schools when they're closed can't offer these things. So we had a talent, this talent challenge between our Real and Sri KDU schools. 700 students participated.
Wow.
The finalists were 100. We linked up, we had a team linking up with Case Western University in the US, where they did the design thinking challenge. I mean, Case Western is one of the top engineering, innovative centers. So they did this challenge. 100 kids participated. They sort of, had ideas on how to help the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals using technology. I mean, we had, more recently, tie-ups with people like, Zap Math, which is a math platform, Education Perfect in New Zealand, so that kids could actually gamify learning. So some kids, they love playing computer games. And so what we did was, sort of match up with platforms that already exist, in the internet, that therefore make math a game, or make English a game, or make learning Mandarin a game. And you had these assessments and you have scores and all of that. So I think I'm really proud of the team, because we were already planning to do this, but I think what the crisis has done,
it just accelerated you guys to do it now.
Exactly. So what would take a normal school sort of 3-4 years to do,
Yeah.
and usually, as you know, the change management process is incredibly difficult, because teachers may not want to do it, parents may not want to do it, children may not want to do it, dragging and kicking and screaming. But now everybody was sort of thrown into this, and so I think, again, one of the silver linings of this is that I see a school community that now realize the importance of this technological platforms in learning and teaching.
But do you think that, I'm actually surprised with the enthusiasm of your students, because I've got two girls who had to start off first with their online classes. So one naturally misses her friends and wishes that she had school and was physically there, whereas the other kid was really happy just doing everything online.
Yeah.
Because I understand, I do a lot of work right now via coaching, via Zoom, and there is that fatigue and the, oh my God, we're doing it again. Because I'm someone who wants real interaction with someone who I can hold and touch and laugh and hear, and but yeah, so I'm actually very pleased to hear that there is a lot of enthusiasm with that co-curriculum activity that you did. And I guess, again, maybe because you had the platforms, they had the infrastructure, the Wi-Fi was set. I know many schools out there who did not have these resources. And then maybe for you and I, because we're used to talking to people, it becomes a little bit more natural talking over the camera. But some teachers, they may address an audience or they're in students, and it feels very kekok to just talk to a camera. So that's all a learning curve, But again, like your school is lucky. In a sense, most schools here are lucky. Unfortunately, there are other places around Malaysia where they're not as fortunate. Either they've got problems with internet connectivity, they don't have access to laptops, the teachers don't know how to do this, kids don't have the access to as simple as electricity. How can we, at the end of the day, we don't want to leave any child behind, right? In your wealth of experience in the education sector, what do you think can be done by policymakers, the government, community, in making sure that we will still be able to deliver quality education across the board fast? How can we cope?
I think the key is access, and in fact, we have actually reached out to different NGOs, different telcos and all that to see, look, what can we do? I think the good news is a lot of people have been working on this, and you can see, in pockets, their efforts of giving computers, so their schemes of tech companies that are giving out free laptops, phones to let's say B40 community members, telcos working on internet access. But in the end of the day, you're absolutely right. It's just access, and look, since about 10-15 years ago, when we talked about the internet and the Internet of Things, one of the themes that we've talked about in terms of the fourth industrial revolution is that by right internet access should democratize education a bit more, meaning that in the past, things that only really rich people had access to,
Yep.
information to. Now, whether it's businesses or educators or, students, almost everybody has access to the same thing. But you see, in the end of the day, that access is only possible if there's a connection, So I think, the analogy of, or the story of, students having to go up tree houses to get internet access to do the exams. I think in the end of the day, that's still the point of tension, which is how can we then, private and public sector together, work together to get more access out, because it's not just about surviving, to me, the COVID crisis, it's
Yep.
way beyond that.
Correct.
It's the moment everybody has access to this wealth of information, immediately it creates opportunities and upward mobility. Meaning the kid who is poor and have got nothing but maybe a cheap handphone or a cheap, $100, Chromebook or iPad or something like that, something that I have. But the moment I've got access to the internet, immediately means that I've got the same access as the millionaire's kid in Bangsa or Damansara or KL,
Correct.
And I think, to me, that's the powerful thing. And you see that in countries like India, where you've got programs like projects like that, giving internet access and then seeing what happens, and it's remarkable transformations, because they are getting access to, whether it's math or science or humanities, learning languages, learning about business and entrepreneurship. All of this stuff suddenly becomes an inspiration, because as we all know, exposure and knowledge are the drivers towards poverty eradication. So I one of the things we are doing, I must add, is that REAL for the last 3 months has been working, for example, with the Ministry of Education. So what we've done to sort of do our bit was we've worked with the MOE to produce a series of about 11 master classes for SPM students, right? We've got the best teachers from all over Malaysia. MOE has actually been recording it, in their studios, a bit delayed because of the second CFCO. But in the first week of January, we're going to be releasing it to all of the 40,000, SPM students. So anybody with any kind of, coverage or access, but also some of the poorer schools will be actually playing it in their schools. So
Right.
that they've got access for the SPM students, as you know, they've really been stressed out because their exam has been moved back. So
Yeah.
we've done this as sort of our little bit to sort of let's open up, let's give access to the best quality education to anybody out there. And I'm really happy, and I'm so happy that MOE was willing to partner with us on this, and that's exciting. And I think there are many other projects, that are ongoing. And look, the good thing is, when crisis happen, the community steps up, and you've got all of these private and public citizens coming forward to say, what else can we do? I've heard tutoring programs, and many other things like that.
We've got a couple of questions coming in, but we're going to be addressing those questions with Dr. Goh in just a bit, all right, during our Q&A session. So hang on, write in all your questions, and God willing, we'll be able to address all those questions that are coming in. Yes, keep them coming, parents, keep them coming. Very good questions indeed. Dr. Goh, I hope you spared your afternoon to be with us. I know this is a 1 hour show,
No
but we
problem.
got a little bit more,
No problem.
It's great that your team has the resources, as I mentioned, the infrastructure and everything. And at the end of the day, it is a collective effort from everyone to ensure that no child is left behind in terms of quality education. And I think the problem of internet connectivity has been a problem way back then. It's been a problem. Everyone has been, every time we change government, I'm sorry but let's keep it this real. Every time we change government, it's either one wants to pursue it or one doesn't. But now they are forced to do it. So again, there is the blessing in all this. Life is indeed very unpredictable. We live in you have this term for it, VUCA, is that how it is?
Yes.
Volatile, uncertain, it's very complex,
ambiguous.
it's ambiguous, and this is of course all shaped by the fourth and fifth industrial revolutions. I think you guys, Real Schools, really have foresight, and you know all this. You have implemented innovative steps to address the real problems with real education. Take us through this.
So look, VUCA was actually a concept developed many years ago, but for military training. So ironically, it was the kind of thing that, when you went to West Point and Sandhurst and you were training as a military leader, they would say, look, the battlefield is not like the real world. The battlefield is VUCA, right? So leadership in the normal, stable world is different from when you're in the middle of a war. and it's volatile, so always changing, uncertain. You can't predict what's going to happen next. Complex, many factors happening, hundreds of things that are changing. And then, of course, ambiguous, because you can't really define what the next endpoint is. So they use that to train military leaders to understand true leadership in battle. Now, I think over the last 10 years, it's become staple MBA. So you go to any MBA Business 101 course, now everybody says, look, this is a VUCA world now, It's not just in the battlefield, the whole world is a VUCA world. I mean, you could have, look, a terrorist attack in Europe, it creates a huge ripple effect. Yep. All of us are shut down in terms of, industry. I mean, last time, don't even talk about COVID. We had SARS, we had haze, we had all kinds of stuff that used to surprise and disrupt us. And I think, to me, COVID this year obviously is the largest manifestation of this VUCA world. I mean, look, nobody in December, when we were making New Year resolutions, none of us, no company in the world would have said, okay, this is what we're going to be doing. So I think, look, to me, coming back to your point about kids, and their education has been disrupted, and now they've got to sort of adapt to online learning. So to me, this is a teachable moment, right? This is a golden opportunity for us to then say, you know what, rather than, sort of protect or shield my kids from the realities of this VUCA world, this is a really good teachable moment to tell the kids, hey, look, guys, this is the real world, And I know it's difficult, I completely understand. It's stressful, it's tough not being with your friends, and it's difficult, I mean, look, Zoom and remote learning, as much as we do it well, it's never obviously going to be an ideal substitute for face-to-face learning. But I think it's about then telling the kids, look, this is a good opportunity to learn to be adaptable and resilient. And these are the examples of the skills that we've come up with in Rio. So what we did last year was, again, I mean, foresight, showed that this was really good timing. But
I think, Papa, we need to send to Rio School already. They got foresight already.
So in May, April last year, we actually spent 2 months, because we were actually redoing the whole curriculum for the next 5-10 years in Rio. And we spent time with, educators and, future trenders and CEOs and entrepreneurs and all these best brains in Malaysia and beyond. And, we were already having Skype and Zoom sessions at that time with people all around the world. And the focus was very simple. We were saying, look, we feel that education, traditional education today is out of touch with the real world. We think that too often we are training kids for the 1980s and 1990s, which is sort of, you can't blame us, because that's our frame of reference. So most of the time when we are giving kids advice, we are thinking, okay, when I was, in 1990 when I was in university, or in 89 when we were in school and all that kind of stuff. So we are thinking that still applies. And I think too many school systems worldwide, it's not just a Malaysian thing, are really out of touch that way. So we felt, look, we need a shift, right? And it can't just be a small, minor, pivot. It needs to really be revamping. So we got together and we talked to all of these people, and we said, okay, look, let's come up with a new curriculum, and we called this our 10 real world skills. And so we said, okay, our new mantra for Rio Schools is real education for the real world, rather than creating this ivory tower or, make schools, this sort of protective layer that, gives them a false sense of what the world is. Let's bring the real world into school, and in a good way, in a fun way, in an exciting way, but still not shield them from the realities of this is what you need to survive. And I think when we talk to parents, they were so excited by this. As you know, look, for the last 20 years as a psychologist, I've been spending a lot of time with parents all over Malaysia. And I think, to me, the big picture goal of any parent is, look, I want to see my child living a full, happy, fulfilled life, right? So whatever they end up doing, whatever pathway they end up doing, whether they are working, whether they are rich or poor, whether they are in Malaysia or somewhere else, whether they are single or married, it's less relevant than, in the end of the day, whatever path they pick, it's a path that makes them happy, right? And I think to do that, all right, so to achieve these goals and dreams, and in the words of what I tell my daughter when she was growing up is, look, I want you to succeed on your own terms, you figure out what you want in life and get it done. But whatever it is you want to do, it's going to be tough, there's no easy dream or goal to achieve. And so you need certain skills to navigate and to also sort of overcome hurdles in the real world. So we came up with these sort of 10 real world skills, like we call it. And so some, for example, one of them is psychological skills. I mean, obviously I'm a psychologist, so it's going to be there. So we talk about psychological skills. So we said, okay, things like resilience, right? I mean, in this VUCA 4IR world, I mean, the World Economic Forum talks about the fact that on average, our kids may need to change industries 3 times, you know. So such is the disruption that, look, you know, I mean, they may be doing one thing and then look, the robots and the AI take over that. You know, and suddenly now they're all out of jobs and they need to shift. I mean, we're not talking shifting companies. The World Economic Forum talks about shifting whole career pathways. And so the degree of volatility and versatility needed in our children is way beyond anything we've experienced. I mean, most of us talk about shifting companies, you know.
Yeah.
We don't talk about 3 major career shifts in our life. Another stat talk about the fact that 65% of jobs that our kids are doing, right, don't exist right now in the world. And so this idea of VUCA guided us. So we say, look, you really need to be resilient, man. I mean, in this VUCA world, things may happen like COVID, and you need to be tough enough emotionally, psychologically, to be able to tahan lah. You know, you cannot be too weak. You cannot be, you know, too easily flustered, right? I mean, life knocks you down. You need to get back up. Then another skill, for example, we talk about digital skills, like digital mindedness. So we say to survive in this 4IR world, it's not just about, you know, learning how to use computers or play games on your iPad. I mean, that one is anybody in the world can do that. But we talk about coding, programming. We talk about AI, VR, AR. So our kids, for example, you know, by you know, primary school, they are designing websites. And by the way, many adults, we can't do that at all, right?
I know, I can't.
You know, so now we're talking about in year 5 and 6, they're already doing, you know, exposed to digital marketing. You know, in secondary school, they're talking about technopreneurship, you know, doing pitches in terms of, you know, app coding design. So again, it's exposing them to new worlds that we never really knew existed. And I think that's the exciting thing. So the 10 real world skills, you know, that we talk about creative arts, drama, music, that expression that is necessary. We talked about entrepreneurship. We talk about design thinking, because innovation, by the way, in most lists, they say innovative creative thinking is going to be the number 1 thing in this world that is taken up by robots, because, you know, it's the one thing that
they can't do.
Robots can't do so well. You know? Well, not yet, right? You know.
Yeah, you're not yet. They can be programmed to do what is required, but they can't be. I mean, that's why we're humans, right? We innovate, we create. And then maybe one day, who knows, right, Doctor?
And the shift was, I mean, when we were growing up, you know, everybody was talking about, hey, look, math and science, and that's the most important thing, which is still kids. And all of the arts was frowned upon, isn't it? You know,
correct.
This arts, you know, creative stuff, all, you know, this soft stuff, you know. But now it's completely turned around.
Different.
Because, I mean, anything that has a formula, basically AI can do faster than us. You know, but it's innovative, creative thinking. So I think all of this stuff, we put together this 10 real world skills, and we've introduced this last year. And so far, I mean, the kids, the parents love it, because like I say, to parents, they have this sense of assurance and peace of mind of saying, okay, look, at least I know when my kid graduates and goes off, you know, to start university or work, I don't need to be sort of babysitting them. So I should also add that, you know, we've even added some old school skills like, you know, CPR. So all of them will learn first aid and CPR. They'll be certified by Form 3. All of them will have to do outdoor camping.
And these are life skills like swimming and stuff like that, which we need to know.
Absolutely.
So I absolutely love the fact that you're adding in the new, but also not removing things that we should be learning. We should have. We need to, because those are things that can save a life. You know, I told my husband, I said, we're not going to skimp out on swimming classes, because all our kids need to be able to swim. Even whether they like to swim or not, you never know the danger out there. And I love the fact that you have these 10 real worlds, because gone are the days where, like you said, back in the 80s, where that's the reference that we have, where, you know, we compartmentalize vocations. I remember the time when my father was so angry with me when I didn't want to take or pursue medicine. And at that time, I said I wanted to study journalism, which journalism has happened for a long time. It was just not recognized as a career per se. Fast track now. I mean, of course, he's still been one of my biggest, huge fans. It's just that even now, mass communications, that used to be like, masscom, wow, I'm in masscom. Now masscom macam ayah. Nothing like, it's evolved altogether. So it's great that you have these 10 words, because one thing when my father he was pretty upset with me, bless him. rest in peace, Dad, but he was really upset with me. And I vowed to him, I vowed to myself that my children will not not go through what I had to go through. So I told my husband, I said, whatever it is, we must be supportive of our kids' interests. We let them decide, you know. But at the end of the day, it's easier said than done, you know. Once you're a parent yourself, wow, so easy lah. No, because I've got a child, Isabel. She's very quiet. I don't know if it's a teen thing. You would know best. You're a psychologist. You've got a teenager yourself. But she's suddenly very recluse. And all she does is draw and drools. And, you know, all she does is that. And she's very much into anime. And I'm like, what's going to happen? She dreams a lot. She daydreams, like, you know. So she's still top on the class. It's just that as a parent, maybe because of my father's upbringing where, girl, you know, this, very tiger father, you know, very Asian, typical Asian father. So I was a bit concerned. And then that's where my husband, bless him, was saying, you know, maybe she wants to study animation. I'm like, what the? Can earn money? Forgetting that I was supposed to be supportive of my child's interests and choice of education and career. Okay. So it's great because she's also into performing arts. And I think that's one of the real words that you have. Because back then, they would not accept performing arts and drama as something that you could earn. It was more of if you're rich and you've got the money to go and play a bit, can lah, or you'll be just super duper poor trying to make ends meet because you've chosen to do arts. You know what I mean? Iman, on the other hand, I don't know where she would fit into your real world because she's very interested in politics. Surprise, surprise. So we don't have a curriculum on politics. So I don't know what would Iman be then if she's more on like community, more on politics and changing policies.
One of the worlds we have is we call it it's really the global skills, like, you know, so one of the real world skills, and that's really important because I mean, in fact, I minored in political studies. In fact, I was just writing in my Facebook post earlier this week that one of my favorite lecturer, Professor Jim Flynn, who was my political studies lecturer, had just passed away last week, and I had this whole tribute about he's the one who got me into lecturing, and I loved his classes. And even when I was doing my PhD, I used to sneak into his classes just to sit there and rapture
and just
because
absorb
he would talk about Plato and Socrates. So I would say to Imam, great, you know, that's great because we need, you know, we need a whole new generation of politicians. But look, I think politics, of course, comes under, to me, the banner of understanding the world, right?
Yeah.
And humanities are getting back in vogue, man, you know, so whether it's economics, whether it's philosophy, geography, in my mind, geography should be compulsory all the way through. I mean, it's crazy to me that in a global world where the world is so much smaller, that our kids are not appreciating how large the world is. And we talk about, you know, I mean, trying to inspire and motivate kids. I mean, this is one of the inspirations to say, look, do you know how large the world is? And the world is your oyster, man. You know, I mean, it's never been easier ever before to sort of travel, of course, after COVID, you know, I mean, to travel, to cross borders, to experience the world. And so to me, that's part of it. So politics, philosophy, geography, history, you know, this is invaluable. And so one of the things we get our students to do is all of this is compulsory until secondary school. And we say, look, it's about connecting to your world. You want to have the freedom to sort of operate, to be able to work anywhere, right? I mean, so whether you know, one of my former students, I think the best interview I've ever heard. So this former student of mine, so I think Petronas, you know, and the interviewer asked the question, okay, we've got many branches around the world, you know, I mean, if you were offered a job somewhere, but we need to send you somewhere else, it's not Malaysia, are you willing to travel? And her answer was she took out of her pocket her passport and she put it on the table and said, I've got a passport. And I think that was great because, you know, this is the global citizen, meaning she's saying, look, I'm willing to go, man. You know, I mean, this is the 21st century, you know, real world citizen. So I would say, you know, firstly, what you're doing with your kids is great. Now, the fact that you're giving them space, and you're encouraging different interests, and bear in mind, I mean, definitely their interests will also change, you know, I mean, so it's not as though it's going to be the same thing for the next 12 years. So I think childhood and teenagehood to me is about giving them space to explore all of the different options that are available, all right? And this is my tip for parents, right? So I would say, for parents who are trying to help their kids make decisions about careers and, you know, what university and that kind of thing, all right, you know? Two things, all right? So I simplified. There are two parts of the career guidance, finding my life pathway process, all right? The first part is helping them understand themselves. Right,
Okay.
so that's about what I'm, I think the yardstick should be by the time they're about 18, 19, 20, 21, they should be able to answer the question, what are my talents? What are the things I do well? What are the things I enjoy doing, And that's why in real schools, this is the philosophy that don't get kids to be afraid of trying new things, and you scold them, and each time they make a mistake, you tear them down, and that's terrible, because then nobody wants to try anything new. Everybody wants to stick with their strengths, So the school shouldn't narrow the focus. Certainly not until they're 16, 17, 18. So I don't believe in streaming until the last possible moment, maybe Form 4, Form 5. I believe what the school should do is actually enlarge their world, right? So that's why we talk about 10 real worlds, and everybody
The
needs to try
10
different
real
things.
worlds, it's not as if they have to choose one. It's a whole...
Compulsory, everybody kena
that's
from year 1 to year 9.
good.
Because you see, and what we're saying is we're not putting pressure on you. You don't need to be excellent in everything, because this is not some pressure thing. This is about exploring, who you are, and you try different things, and who knows, and you try different sports, and you try art, and you try this and that. And look, by the way, you may be great at a few different things, but the goal of schools, to me, is talent development, which is by the time they're 17, 18, they can then say, okay, I have really experienced life, right? I have tried many different things. So now, Mommy and Papa, when you ask me, what do I really want to do? I can look you in the eye and say with some certainty, hey, look, these are some options. These are the things that I enjoy doing. And so I think that's number one, understanding themselves. I mean, there is no career guidance personality test that is magically going to be able to tell your child what they are supposed to do if they haven't had enough of life experiences. So I think a good school does that. I think part of that also, understanding themselves, is having the answer to the question, what do I really want in my life? Now, I know that's difficult. This is all existential questions. Many of us adults are still grappling with this. In terms of what do I really want? And we say, look, it's not about a 50-year plan or anything like that. I mean, what you want when you're 20 may be different from 25 to 30 to 45. And that's fine. I mean, your goals in life may evolve. And that's fine, but at least giving them the habit, or getting them into the habit of saying, I need clarity of what makes me happy. And I mean, I remember this was the last lecture I gave in university before I retired from university, and I sort of went into schools for the last few years. The last lecture I talked about was how do you find life happiness, and my first tip was start asking yourself the question, what do I really want? And many human beings don't know how to ask this question and don't know how to answer it. And I think that's the root of why there's so much unhappiness in the world. Why, you got
it really is about self-exploration, isn't it?
And clarity about what
and
you want.
clarity on what you want.
All of these adults, like you say, who are 40, 50, 60 years old, and they've done everything, their parents and society has asked them to do. So they've sort of followed the formula of, I've got best grades, and I've gone to good university, I've got good results, I've got a lot of money, but I mean, there is no light in their life.
Something's lacking.
Because they've not been able to find it. So I think understanding yourself, including what you want in life, that's number one. And number two, is being exposed to the world, understanding the world. And I think as parents and as schools, what we can do is expose your kids to, hey, all of this stuff, and go and visit friends, and go and visit, your friends and cousins and relatives who are working in different industries. And, during holiday time, go and ask them to go and volunteer, get your kids to go and help out, and just expose them to the fact that, hey, look, there are hundreds of new professions that exist out there. And I just want, shop around, don't rush, so that by the time you're 18, 19, 20, and then you're having to make decisions, you're not sort of blur. So I think these two things are the foundations. Understanding themselves and understanding the world. And when you've got these two, then it should be a lot easier.
I'm smiling at that comment because it just brought back a memory of my mom. When I wanted to tell my dad that I didn't want to continue pursuing medicine, my mom's approach, because she knew I was too scared to tell my dad, was she's a retired nurse now. She said, during the school holiday, why don't you follow me to the hospital? So Sanak Sabala, Queen Elizabeth Hospital, government hospital. Yep. I lasted 2 hours. I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. And that was her way of saying she knew that was not my cup of tea. I mean, she gave birth to me, right? But she didn't want me, she didn't have to tell me, like, I don't think that's going to be something for you. You're your goal is like you want to be Dr. Daphne Iking, but what is it? Who is it really for? So she said, come and join me. And that's what she did. And that's when I said, I don't want to do this. I don't think I can't stomach this, you know. And that's when I had the courage to tell my dad, who are completely different parenting goals, mom and dad, but that's all. So it just brings me to a smile. So can I just summarize it again? It's basically tips for parents out there to ask your children and helping them to understand themselves better.
Yep.
This normally happens in their late teens, because then they would be able to understand and to be able to grasp what's what a little bit better. What are their talents? What are their interests? What do they like? And what makes them happy? And the second part is to expose them, to give them that freedom to check out all the different worlds that we have surrounding us. So very good pointers indeed. Are you ready for a quick Q&A with some of the questions that we have, Doctor?
Yep.
Oh, I just realized we've been talking so much. It's almost an hour. I'm just going to get the questions from Joe. I think I've got one question here actually. It was from Jasmine. She said, public schools are not ready for online classes because the teachers are just not providing quality e-learning experience. What can be done then? What needs to be done? This is from Jasmine.
I think, look, to be fair, it varies. You know, I mean, I don't think it's fair to say all public school teachers are not ready. We've seen some really excellent examples. And I think, again, you know, different teachers have adapted in a different way. Some of them are more ready, more innovative. Others, really, they're not used to the medium. And I don't blame them because it's completely new. But I would say maybe one of the things we can do, and we've certainly, as a private school in Rail and Sri Kedu, opened up to say, look, if any of the public schools want help, I mean, if there's anything we can do to help them in terms of them coming in to see, observe what our teachers are doing, you know, some training being provided, perhaps
bless
knowledge
you
shared.
guys.
I mean, we are more than happy because, look, I think all of us in private education, I mean, when you look back at the founders of private education, all of them, I think, had Malaysia in mind. You know, I mean, it wasn't for profit. It was really how can we have an impact on the country. So I would say to public schools out there that if you need help, you know, you find that your teachers are struggling, please reach out to me anytime. And we are happy to actually come in and work alongside you. And I mean, I'm not going to say that, you know, we're necessarily perfect, but whatever we have, we're happy to share.
Oh, bless you, Doctor. Okay, this is another question. Can I just see your question that you shot just now, so that I can get it verbatimly? There was one from very interesting question that he said something about enrichment classes are still needed or still required. Again, it could be from a different private sector, or is it a public sector? Let's see. No, not this one. Okay, this is from. Oh dear. All right, let's see Mei first. We'll do Mei first. Dr. Goh, how can parents balance kids with eyesight issues and also those who are quite adverse to online classes despite high engagement in online classes?
Yeah. Well, look, I think a great thing is a balance. Look, my own kids have had to do this for the last 6-7 months. So I think the important thing is, firstly, good school programs. So what we do in Rail and in Sri Kedu as well is that we balance. So it's not like 5-6 hours straight of having to look at a screen, you know. I mean, I think, you know, in all of our programs, and by the way, our hybrid program allows students to, whether they want to come to school face-to-face or do it at home, it always gives breaks, you know. So they are maybe facing the screen for a little while, they're doing some activities, but then the teacher will say, okay, look, you need to go and read a book or walk around, or, you know, rest your eyes, you know, and focus outside, you know, do a bit of a stretch exercise. So I think good teachers know how to balance so that, you're right, the kid is not staring at the screen over too much a long period of time. So most, I think teachers, the way they run it is maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes of activities online, and then the kid, you know, turns the computer off and then they're doing something. They're doing an activity, you know, so whether it's doing some work, assignments, reading a book, and then they come back to it. So that balance then ensures that that fatigue, the eyes are not suffering because of that. So that would be my simple answer.
All right, we've got one from Lenges Nadarajan. Based on my own experience, not entirely the case to say private school students do not require extra classes. I still had to send my kids to enrichment or sports due to lack of skilled teachers who are actually assigned to teach the extra activities. Your thoughts?
No, I think absolutely. And this is why, I mean, when parents choose private school providers, you know, as a consumer, you need to hold them accountable. Absolutely. And you need to ensure, that's one of the advantages of being involved in a private school. You can hold them accountable in terms of who are the teachers, what is the quality of the delivery. And in a sense, if I'm not happy with what, I'm finding, I can, my feet can do the talking, because there are hundreds of options that are out there. So I think as a private school provider, we are very mindful of the responsibility we have to ensure that all of the classes, all of the outcomes, all of the teachers of a high benchmark, so that as this parent has pointed out, you shouldn't need to, it's ridiculous if you're going to a private school and still have to send your kids for tuition outside. When I 7-8 years ago, when I started the first private international school here, I remembered the motto and the mantra was very simple, that the quality should be in the school. So like I said earlier, it's a one-stop center. You don't need anything else out of it.
Yeah, I remember a time when my dad said, why am I spending so much on tuition? You're not paying attention in class. All right, in conclusion, Doc, what's your foresight to education in the coming year? For instance, do you think that there'll be hybrid learning or online learning be accepted by other schools? Since you have so much foresight, Real School has so much foresight, what can we expect 2021?
I think, look, by all accounts, it's going to be a brighter year, 2021. So I would say,
amen to that.
I think it's going to be a lot more opening of schools. You're not going to see so many lockdown days, because I think from what we've understood now of the virus, and how it works, and the fact that most of our schools, like for our school, for example, we've partnered with Columbia Asia Hospitals to make sure it's incredibly safe. I think more parents are now going to feel more secure to send their kids back to school. But having said that, I think it's really important for schools to be ready, all right? And I think all schools should take note of the fact that there's still going to be some volatility, which means that, the hybrid learning model is important, whereby, whether it's face-to-face or whether it is actually remote learning, schools need to have those two models. And like in the case of Real, we actually operate those two models side by side. So we developed something with Apple Education Singapore about 3 months ago. So just before we opened up in July, we already realized that it was going to be half-half, meaning some parents may say, hey, look, my kid has a sniffles today or a bit of a cold, so I can't send my kid to school, but I don't want my kid to miss out, or maybe some parents may say, look, I'm still a bit uncomfortable sending my kid to school. So we actually had side-by-side hybrid classes, whether, so half the class may actually be in the campus
physical,
classroom, and the other 4 or 5 may actually be doing it online. So to me, I think that's the future, for the next 3-4 months, with parents still being a little bit wary. I think good schools are going to have to maybe follow our model and actually offer those side by side moving forward until by May, June, when I think everything then opens up. The vaccine, most people are vaccinated, we've got herd immunity, and then, thankfully, everybody can then go back to school. And I know a lot of parents are going, phew,
But I'm sure, surely, doctor, surely you got first sight, no news, no speculation of when it's going to open or not. They're saying right now it's 20th of January, right? That is the schedule for most schools.
In fact, actually, most of our schools, I would say our schools have actually really announced. And of course, our schools, some of them are running the international curriculum, national school curriculum. It's different dates, our kindergartens, but I can tell you, all of them are opening before January 20th, because January 20th is for public schools. And for public schools, because they've got capacity issues, because their SPM students are having to come in and do the SPM. That's why the staggering, all of you notice, for the public schools, it's staggered. They are opening a bit later, all right, to give their teachers a bit of a break, but also not all of the years can come back on January the 20th. The staggering goes all the way until February and March. But largely it's because they are struggling with capacity because they need to run the SPM exams in February.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have enough classrooms, you see. So I think
because they've to do the social distancing and everything.
So I think one of the advantages of private schools, because we have no shortage of, campus space and all that. So we are all starting in the first 2 weeks of January immediately. We've already announced it to parents because we've got more facilities in terms of being able to adopt that. So I think myself and I think a lot of the other private schools probably have already announced start dates in January. And I can tell you, I think the teachers are all dying to get their kids in because, all of us, the school buildings are so empty and depressing without the life of the school.
With the life of the students, right?
So first week of January already, a lot of our schools are opening up, and I personally can't wait to go and walk among them because the funnest part of my job is actually just being there with the kids. Like I say, I mean, school buildings are dead without kids. So we are looking forward to that.
Our school actually recently just sent an email and said, "Oh, now you can buy your kids' books online." And I'm like, why did they do this earlier on? That means it could have been done, because back then we had to go and line up and do it come there, panas, but now it's there. So I'm actually going to be optimistic about this. There's a blessing in disguise.
And more ebooks, I should mention also. So a lot more ebooks are available, so they may not even need a hard copy.
Correct. So we save the trees, save the environment. All right. Just very quickly, Mei Li Tan, who asked the question early on, she says, "Thank you, Dr. Goh. All my kids are or were from Real Kids. Thank you to all your teachers and principals at Real Kids Bukit Jelutong for their dedication. There were challenges, of course, but appreciate the foundation given to them prior to them entering primary schools." That's from Mei Li.
Wonderful. That's lovely to hear. And look, our teachers in the Real Group are super dedicated. So like I say, they've really done everything they can in their power to make sure the kids have as much of a great education in spite of all of the challenges. So I kudos to all of them. Maybe I should end by thanking all of them for making this a year challenging but still very, very fulfilling. Thank you.
You know what they say? They say that a good team is led by a good leader. So kudos to you, Dr. Goh. And I am really, really hoping that we can chat more, hopefully in person. And if you would like to know a little bit more about Real Schools, then you can visit realworldready.realschools.edu.my. We will post it in our Facebook comments, also on our caption. Again, it's realworldready.realschools.edu.my. Thank you, Dr. Goh. What a pleasurable afternoon chatting with you and getting insights on you, and your positivity is just so infectious.
The pleasure is all mine. Thank you so much, Daphne. Thank you.
All right then. Bye, doctor. Take care. God bless, and we'll speak soon, yeah? So that was Dr. Goh. Oh my God, I love him. I love his optimism. I love the fact that when you meet someone, or in this sense, it's virtually. But when you meet someone and you've got very good vibes about that person, it just brightens your whole day. And I can see why he's leading such an amazing team and doing what they're doing, and they've got foresight and they're ready to face VUCA. I'll be honest, that's the first time I've actually heard of it, and I'm actually very, very keen now to find out a little bit more about.
How do you spell this VUCA?
VUCA, volatile uncertainties, complex and ambiguous.
Wow.
We should go and check them out, my love.
Volatility.
Yeah, but yes, again, go visit realworldready.realschools.edu.my. I really hope I can get Dr. Goh to speak about this more, because obviously 1 hour is not enough. But I'm looking forward to probably taking a visit to their school. I think we have one nearby, Papa.
Yeah.
We should go and check it out, because, I'm a little bit sold. What we were meant to be talking about, terlari sikit.
It makes you wonder whether our kids are in a real school.
Exactly. And the fact that they've got these 10 worlds, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? 10 worlds where it encompasses everything that they should be exposed to. And then they can sort of figure out in life what is their interest, what is their talents, what makes them happy. And then they can figure out what they want to do, rather than we have someone who, 2-3 kali masuk sekolah, this one flunk here, flunk there, ayo, murga. So yeah. This is great. All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone who has stayed on all the way. I know we ran a little bit over time, but I'm so thankful for all your feedback, your questions. And if you have any questions for Dr. Goh, please head over to their Real School Facebook page and you can get in touch with them there, right? In the meantime, my name is Daphne Iking, and it has been a pleasure talking to our wonderful guest today. And I hope you guys are staying safe at home. Parents out there, don't worry. Let's think positive. Think of the silver lining to all this. And let's just have a good break. Let's have a good Christmas break before we start getting all anxious again, figuring out what's going to happen next for our kids, all right? They're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. We're resilient. We're a resilient lot, aren't we, baby? We are. All right, then. Take care, everyone. I'll see you on our next Alive at Home with me, Daphne Iking. Bye for now.